Rival Cities is a competitive game for only 2 players, and I mean that it's not gonna be easy to play solo 2 hands. Maybe they will release a solo version, but for now it's only for 2 players, and one player will control Hamburg and another player will represent Altona, as these two rival cities are gonna try to gain prestige, to gain resources, to basically to outdo the other city on a number of scales. We have a board that goes in between the 2 players and is surrounded by cards that form a variable rondelle. Yes, the main game mechanic is the rondelle, so that token there will be moved following specific restrictions, and the place where it ends indicates what action can be taken by the active player. But these are cards, so these are not symbols printed on a rondelle, so you can shuffle those and you will have a different game every time. You do that with these cards with a light background. These cards with a darker background, they come from a deck of special action cards. They're very powerful, and also they're variable, of course. They will always be variable. You draw random ones there to place in those 4 spots at the beginning of the game, and they are refreshed during the game. The general idea is this. You will use different kind of goods. We got beer, leather, old radios. So that's what I thought. But no, furniture and the whistles. Whistles? No, cloth. Come on, I'm just messing with you. And cloth. You will use different actions to collect these goods, and these goods in turn will allow you to do different things. You will also start with a factory, and when you're producing, you can flip your factory to its inactive site to produce extra stuff. You can refresh it later. You can also get extra things. Letters are another important resource that you can use to buy different kinds of advantages, one of which is you can trade any resource for another one. So if I need a skin, I can spend a letter and a beer and get a letter. Skin is kind of weird, a letter. So, it's a rondelle-based game. I mentioned that with a shared action marker. The general idea is this: players will alternate taking turns. When it is your turn, you will move the marker clockwise along the track of action cards. You can move the marker 1 or 2 spaces for free. If you want to move an extra space, it will cost you any one product. If you want to move it another one, it will cost you another product. If you want to move even more than that, which is pretty exceptional, then it will cost you 2 extra products for each situation, for each space. So that's the cost. Pretty stiff, huh? But we start from there. Once you land on a space, A, you can take the action indicated on the space. Some cards have a single action, such as this one. Some cards have a rep in the middle, which indicates either or. You can take either of those actions. So you simply can take the action of the space in which you land. Remember I mentioned those special cards with a darker background, or instead of taking the action of the card that you land on, ignoring that entirely, you can play one of these cards from hand, and you do that one instead. Or if you have one of those letters that I showed you, you can play one of these cards from hand and a letter, in which case you can perform the actions of the card and the actions of the card that you landed on. How do these go in your hand? You probably guessed it. If you landed on a space with one of those cards, instead of doing other things, you simply collect it. For now you collect it, and for now it also stays empty. And this is how these cards go into your hand. This is the general idea. Pretty much I taught you the core idea of the game. When the marker goes all the way around and passes the bell, then it stops wherever it would stop normally. where we would stop normally because a player selected an action then moved it past the bell. The player who did that collects the bell as a reminder that it is their turn, but before they get to take their turn, we need to do a little bit of upkeep, and there is a sequence of actions that you will perform. I add that little cube here as a reminder while we go through the action sequence of the upkeep, or where we are. Just to clarify, this is not included in the base game. I want to clarify that. That's the core idea. We continue until A player has met conditions to achieve instant victory, which may happen. I've seen it happen. I lost the game because of those ones. Or until an end of the game condition is triggered. So, for example, to have an instant win, you need to have 3 more ships than your rival, and that's how... no, that's not how I lost. I fought against that one the whole game. Or when a player wins 3 legal cases, or when a player has 4 allegiances, or when this track here tracks prestige, or when a player pulls the prestige marker all the way to their side, Hamburg or Altona. That's why I lost to the instant condition. I was fighting against the ships, and my friend won that way instead. So those doesn't happen. One of these conditions will occur at a certain point because simply these resources will be depleted. Maybe all lawsuits will be resolved, all factories will be built, star tokens have been taken, ships have been built. If the game ends because of one of these, then victory is based on stars. Many game components have stars on them, as you can see. Plus, there are also actions that simply will give you star tokens. So, if the game ends because of one of these conditions, then simply players look at all the stars that they have in their personal area, and the player with the most stars win the game. So, there's a variable way in which the game can end that way. As for the actions themselves, the actions that you take, production. Remember here, usually you would take either or. Production, you take whatever is indicated there, like 2 beers, for example, or 1 cloth. You can also flip a factory to its inactive side to collect more beer. And you can do it multiple times, one extra good per factory. You can build a factory. I spend any 2 goods, and up to once, I can build a new factory. So I collect a factory token. I gain prestige, which gives me that shift towards my side of the board. Or I take an alliance. Now, the alliances are here on the board at the beginning of the game. And when you have the action of collecting an alliance, well, you choose one and you take it. The alliance will give you different kinds of advantages. They can be pretty good. You can pause and read if you would like to give you a sense. By the way, there are more. And so each game you'll only use 4 from the ones available. You can take an alliance, and also they'll give you stars if you have them at the end of the game, and the game ends that way. You can take an alliance from here simply by using the action, or you can steal an alliance that the other player has collected if you spend a letter. Those letters are really useful, told you. And so that's for that. Gift, you simply receive free stuff. Donations, you can spend resources to collect star tokens. Piracy, you steal stuff from your opponent, at least they gain some prestige because they're upstanding moral citizens and you suck. Building a ship. You build one of the ships available here. Remember, having 3 ships more than the opponent is a victory condition, so that's pretty important. You pay the cost indicated there. You collect the ship, and sometimes you will gain an advantage right away. Just so happens this is not the case. Other times you will get an advantage during the off season, which is what I call the upkeep, which is when you pass the bell, that special section there. Or other times you will get advantages that trigger at different times. That's for building ships. They can be very powerful. And again, you don't use all of the ships, so huge variety there, because only a certain number of ships will be used each game. So, collect a special card. As simple as that. I draw it from the deck. And I'll play later. Collect an envelope, a letter. And now, an action is a little more complicated, which is to take a legal action, which means to interact with these three cards that we see up there. And they come from a specific deck of legal actions. And again, variety, because you will not use all the legal actions every game. Each legal action is also connected to one of these templates with a black cube on it, and also with a tracker that is printed on the board. Each legal case starts with the marker indicating 0, because that's what they are. Let's look at this one so you can see it more up close. When you take a legal action from anywhere, from again any action that has that icon there, when you take a legal action, you choose one of the three available legal actions and you pay the cost. For example, I need to pay 1 cloth here, or 2 beer for, for taking that. Those lawyers, they like to party, I guess. They love to party. So I take that, I spend the legal cost. It tells you how many times I can do it, once for example. I gain something right away. In this case, I would gain a beer. And I get to advance my case. That's the check mark by 1 space in my direction. So from 0 on it's on a 1. It may also be, not all cases have that printed on the board, that there is another cost that I can choose to pay to advance my case multiple times. Don't mind if I do. I have more cloth here, and I decide so to advance my case 1 more time, like that. And then that would be there. Suppose that the situation here is that the marker is on a 2 facing Altona. So why do we influence the legal cases? Because sometimes there are actions that will allow you to resolve a legal case right away. It's one of the actions that is on the rondelle. Or the legal case will be resolved in this phase here when we pass the bell. What happens when a legal case is resolved, whether because of the action or because of the upkeep phase? Simple. If it's the marker is on 2 or higher facing a player, so 2 or higher for Altona, 2 or higher for Hamburg, that is resolved stunningly for that city. The city wins the lawsuit, and so the player collects the card and collects those resources. Will score points for stars if at the end we count stars. But also winning 3 legal cases is a instant victory. So that's if you have at least 2 on your side. If you have 1, it's a minor legal victory. That is, you will collect a star token, but that the lawsuit is discarded rather than given to somebody. If it's on a 0, then it's undecided. The lawsuit is discarded instead of being given to somebody. And no one gets anything. There are 7 lawsuits, so that is also a timer for the game, because each time that we reach that phase, we'll resolve one of these, and so one of these will be discarded or will go to a player. And if people select this action here, remember, more will be resolved, and so that means that it'll go even faster. In other words, the game, to my understanding, cannot go more than 7 turns around the board. Real quick look at that famous phase that I mentioned so many times here. What happens when we pass the bell? In the off season, you need to pay upkeep if you want to keep your alliances. Those friends aren't for free. Or you simply return them to the board. You gain influence if you have more ships than the opponent. You make income from some ships that give you income in this phase. You may gain income from prestige. Not only does that help you win an instant victory, you also collect all of the goods that are above the prestige and from between the middle of the board up to your marker if the marker is on your side, and there are icons there. So collect income from prestige, resolve the legal case in the foremost position. After that is resolved, we shift the other legal cases and we set up the next. 1-0. That's for that. And then we discard any of those special actions that may still be around the board, refresh with new ones, reactivate the factories, check for end conditions, and if that is the case, you count stars. If the end conditions are not met, then you continue to play until the conditions are met at some point and you count the stars, or somebody wins the game with an instant victory. This game is really great. It's just so much fun. Doesn't have a lot of flexibility. You need to play with exactly 2 people, but those 2 people are likely gonna have a good time, which is absolutely great. What I find impressive is that I feel like I'm playing a more complex game. I have a level of thinking, strategizing. My mind is considering so many different projects. I need to keep track of different things, but in a way that is not burdensome. I feel like I'm playing a heavier game at a fraction of the cost. Usually the two go together. I have to put in all the mental work of learning those and then maybe complicated logistics in order to have the depth of strategy. Here it has like a deeper game than the game is. Again, a game that plays like light, medium, light weight, that gives me the satisfaction of a heavier game. That's a really good deal. Also, very minimal downtime because it's only the 2 of us. Some of the heavier games, well, you're gonna take much longer and you're gonna wait for much longer. Sure, there is a lot to do during the other player's turn, but they're gonna be short. Maybe I'm gonna take 2 beers. And that's quite literally how long it may take for your opponent to take their turn. And then the thinking goes, of course, into sequencing the actions. It's not just what I want, but what actions am I making available to the other player. The other player has 2 ships already and I have 0. I desperately need to build a ship, or I definitely don't want them to build a 3rd ship and win. So I'm spending some extra. If I can go, I'll do it. Spend extra resources to build it. If not, I'll spend extra resources just to play the marker on top of the ship action. Otherwise, they will build it and win. So you have that idea of like the restrictions, not just what you want, but also what you don't want them to have. It plays into the space of decision, makes decision making really interesting. And again, it's very simple, very intuitive. It's right there. I want them to have that or not, and at what cost? No, they can't afford it. I guess it's fine if they put it here. Really great. You can play the game in an hour easily or less if somebody meets the instant victory. When I was reading the rulebook, I was a bit like, this is weird. I don't see a lot of Euro games. It's so much insta-win situations. That's more like a word gamey thing, if you take Moscow kind of thing. But it really works because it keeps the game tense. Again, it gives you different priorities. It's not too terribly difficult to avoid instant victory if you keep an eye on it. And that's why, again, I want to do my project, but I can't let the opponent's prestige or lawsuits or shipbuilding go too much ahead. I need to invest on a little bit of everything. The game gives you incentive, again, in keeping a large view of things and does so in a very satisfying way. Those special action cards are very satisfying, very rewarding, very powerful. Don't let the opponent collect too many or it's going to be bad. And that, I would say, in general, it's a very interactive game in that sense that you're always manipulating what you get and what you leave behind, what you do and what you don't want the opponent to do. Everything comes together elegantly and beautifully. Production looks really nice. Just the tiniest nitpick, those templates for the lawsuit sometimes It's hard to see. It's the cube on a 1 or a 0. I wish those had been done in a slightly different way. Sometimes we had to double check, is it a 1 or a 2? Mainly we remember because each lawsuit is an action that you plan and then you do. But somehow that's the one part of the board, the production, material production, that is less than ideal. Other than that, the game looks great, plays great. It's just a real fun game. 2-player Euro game, very satisfying, very fun, and it gives you the feeling that you're playing a longer, more complicated game, and yet you don't have such heavy brain burn at the end of the session. To me, that is a really good thing.